Begin our show with President Biden's final stop on his European tour following the culmination of that NATO meeting in Lithuania.
This morning, the president is in Finland for the U.S. Nordic summit. He is expected to formally hail Finland's recent NATO membership and welcome Sweden ahead of its entry. Yesterday, the president wrapped up the NATO summit by holding talks with Ukraine's President Zelenskyy. That meeting came after Zelenskyy expressed frustration at NATO's refusal to offer a timetable for Ukraine's membership. Instead, NATO allies pledged their long-term support to Kyiv. Speaking after the summit, President Biden said the military alliance was stronger than ever.
When Putin and his craven lust for land and power unleashed his brutal war on Ukraine, he was betting NATO would break apart. He was betting NATO would break. He thought our unity would shatter at the first testing. He thought democratic leaders would be weak, but he thought wrong.
We got a team standing by to discuss all this. In a few moments, we'll speak with former U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, Bill Taylor. But first, let's check in with Monica Alba, who's in Helsinki, and Kelly Cobiella, who is in Kyiv. Monica, let's start with you. This U.S. Nordic summit is happening this morning. What can we expect from that? And then what came out of President Biden's meeting with the Finnish president a little earlier?
Well, it has certainly been a warm welcome for President Biden here in Finland, Joe, and he will be celebrating and marking the fact that Finland was able to join NATO with record speed, the fastest member that has ever been able to join this critical alliance. And so the two leaders today in their meeting and face-to-face certainly touted that progress, continued to talk about how NATO is stronger than ever in the face of this Russian aggression. And we are here in Helsinki. And Finland, of course, shares a very long border with Russia, and before the invasion of Ukraine had some pretty friendly relationship with the country. So it was incredibly significant that they applied for that NATO membership and then were able to join. So certainly you will see a lot of talk about that here today. And of course, we have to note the incredible political contrast when you think about what was happening here in Helsinki 5 years ago to the week when former President Trump was meeting with President Putin, and where, of course, he famously said that he believed President Putin when it came to his denials about Russian election interference. So expect President Biden to also make crystal clear that the circumstances and stakes couldn't be more different here today in Helsinki than it was. And I think you can expect him to continue to clearly send that message here, Joe.
So, Kelly, all these leaders are talking about Ukraine. Meanwhile, you're in Ukraine where the fighting continues. We understand there was another drone attack on Kyiv overnight. What can you tell us about that?
That's right. For the third night in a row, air raid sirens went off last night in the early morning hours this time, about 1:30 in the morning. And you could actually hear and see the Ukrainian air defenses intercepting these drones and missiles. The Ukrainian military said that they shot down 20 drones and 2 missiles overnight, and the falling debris injured 4 and damaged a couple of homes. But yeah, the third night in a row for a drone attack here in the capital. Meantime, we're getting some new information about what the conditions may be like on the ground in Russian-occupied territory for the Russian troops. Russian MP overnight released an audio message purported to be from a prominent Russian general, in which this general talks about problems with equipment, with resources, with the morale of his troops, describing them as exhausted and not having enough reserves to come in and replace them. Now, we haven't been able to independently authenticate this audio message, but if true, it shows a real problem with morale and equipment and, again, personnel in the field on the front lines in the south of this country for the Russians, and potentially a split among top military within Russia, leadership in the field, and back in Moscow. Joe.
So, Monica, we know President Zelenskyy was incredibly disappointed Ukraine wasn't offered a timeline for a NATO invite. How much of an issue was that during their talks yesterday with President Biden?
Yeah, President Zelenskyy certainly came into the NATO summit quite disappointed and frustrated. But over the course of about 24 hours, he did shift that tone and instead really did express a lot of gratitude to NATO leaders here who had come together, certainly to continue to support Ukraine and who had pledged so much of that weaponry and continued assistance. But yes, President Zelenskyy did want to see something in a shorter term, though in the end, the takeaway was that he was satisfied with some of the longer term security agreements that came from it. And here's a little more from what President Biden had to say yesterday in Lithuania about how their lengthy meeting went.
The one thing Zelenskyy understands now is that whether or not he's in NATO now is not relevant as long as he has the commitments that, remember my talking about saying we treat it like guaranteed security along with a number of other NATO countries as it relates to how we deal with, for example, Israel long term. So he's not concerned about that now.
And President Zelenskyy was also very grateful to Americans and specifically to President Biden for those controversial cluster munitions that the U.S. is now also sending to Ukraine. Joe?
And Kelly, we just heard President Biden's take on what happened at NATO. Quickly, I want to ask you, how is Zelenskyy reflecting on this NATO summit?
Yeah, so the quote that really stands out was that he said that it was not ideal, but it was good. And I think that sums it up. The Ukraine was concerned about long-term support from NATO allies. Some of those concerns were assuaged by that G7 security guarantee. So I think, in terms of what he can bring back to his people, his soldiers on the ground who continue to fight, are these assurances from the G7 that they're in it for the long haul, that they will have the resources they need, military equipment, economic resources, and resources to rebuild going forward. Joe.
All right, Monica and Kelly, thank you both. Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.